The snow fell so thick that Ethan Walker almost didn't see the child standing in the middle of Highway 87. A little girl, maybe 5 years old. No hat. No shoes. Her bare feet left red prints in the white snow. Blood freezing as fast as it appeared. She clutched a torn teddy bear to her chest, shaking so violently Ethan thought she might collapse right there in the storm. Ethan was a single father who had survived war, but in that moment, his heart nearly stopped. He didn't know her name. He didn't know who she was. And he had no idea that in just a few hours, her billionaire mother would arrive with a truth that would terrify the entire town. The windshield wipers fought a losing battle against the blizzard. Ethan gripped the steering wheel of his old pickup, eyes straining through the whiteout. The Montana winter had arrived early and cruel this year, turning Highway 87 into a tunnel of swirling white. He was heading home after picking up parts from Billings. His son, Noah, would be at Mrs. Henderson's house by now, probably eating cookies and asking 1,000 questions about when Dad would get home. The thought warmed him against the cold seeping through the truck's worn seals. Then he saw her. At first, Ethan thought it was a trick of the snow. A shadow. Maybe. The storm playing games with his vision. But as his headlights cut through the white, the shape solidified. Small. Human. Standing perfectly still in the center of the highway. His foot slammed the brake. The truck fishtailed, tires searching desperately for traction on the ice beneath the snow. He jerked the wheel, heart hammering, and the vehicle came to rest just 15 feet from the child. Ethan sat frozen for 3 heartbeats, hands trembling on the wheel. Then, training kicked in. The same instinct that had kept him alive in Kandahar, that had taught him to act first and process later. He threw open the door and jumped out into the storm. The wind hit him like a fist, stealing his breath. Snow invaded his eyes, his mouth, his lungs. But he pushed forward, boots crunching through 6 inches of fresh powder. The girl hadn't moved. She stood there in a thin pink nightgown, no coat, no protection from the elements. Her blonde hair was matted with ice. Her face had taken on a bluish tint. The teddy bear she held looked as ravaged as she did. One eye missing, stuffing, spilling from a torn seam. But it was her feet that made Ethan's stomach drop. Bare, cut, bleeding onto the snow in small red circles that the blizzard quickly buried. "Hey there, sweetheart," Ethan said, dropping to one knee. He kept his voice soft, the same tone he used with Noah after a nightmare. "My name is Ethan. Can you hear me?" Her eyes moved to his face, brown eyes, huge and glassy with shock. Her lips tried to form words, but only produced small clouds of vapor. "I'm going to pick you up now, okay? We need to get you warm." He didn't wait for permission. Hypothermia didn't negotiate. Ethan scooped the child into his arms, and she weighed almost nothing. He'd carried his rifle pack that weighed more. She was small for 5, if that was even her age, fragile as bird bones. She didn't resist. Didn't make a sound, just held that bear tighter and let her head fall against his shoulder. Ethan ran back to the truck, yanked open the passenger door, and climbed in with her still in his arms. He cranked the heat to maximum, grabbed the emergency blanket from behind the seat, and wrapped it around her small body. "You're safe now," he murmured, rubbing her arms through the blanket, trying to generate warmth. "I've got you." Finally, her lips moved. The words came out barely above a whisper, cracked and raw. "I can't find my mommy." Ethan Walker knew something about being lost. He'd been 22 when he enlisted. Young and stupid, his father had said. Noble and brave, his mother had countered. The truth fell somewhere in between. He'd wanted to serve, to protect, to be part of something bigger than the dying Montana town he'd grown up in. 2 tours in Afghanistan had taught him what protection really meant. It meant watching friends die. It meant making impossible choices. It meant coming home with scars that didn't show on x-rays. But he'd also come home to Sarah. Sweet, patient Sarah who worked at the diner and didn't mind that sometimes he woke up screaming. They'd gotten married at the courthouse with just their parents as witnesses. Noah was born 10 months later, and for a while, life had been good. Then came the drunk driver on a Tuesday afternoon. Sarah had been coming home from grocery shopping. The impact killed her instantly, the police said. She didn't suffer, they said, as if that made it better. That was 2 years ago. Noah had been 4. Now he was 6, gap-toothed and curious, asking questions about death that Ethan still didn't know how to answer. Ethan had rebuilt his life around being dad. He worked at Miller's Auto Repair, fixing engines and transmissions. The pay was decent enough to keep them fed and housed. His shifts were predictable, which mattered when you had a first grader who needed pickup at 3:15 every day. He'd learned to cook basic meals, learned to braid hair, though Noah refused to grow his out, learned to read the same bedtime stories over and over without losing his mind, learned to be both mother and father, even though he felt like he was failing at both most days. But he'd also learned something more important: how to recognize fear in a child's eyes, how to make a scared kid feel safe when the world had turned hostile. That knowledge kicked in now as he held this shivering stranger in his truck. "My name's Ethan," he said again, keeping his voice low and steady. "What's yours?" She looked at him with those huge brown eyes. "Lily, that's a beautiful name. Lily, I need to look at your feet, okay? I promise I'll be gentle." She nodded, just barely. Ethan carefully unwrapped the blanket from her lower body. Her feet were worse than he'd thought. Deep cuts, probably from rocks or ice, frostbite starting at the toes. He'd seen frostbite before, in the mountains of Afghanistan. This wasn't critical yet, but it would be soon if he didn't act. He grabbed his water bottle and a clean rag from the glove compartment. The water was barely above freezing, but